My name is Dank Douglas, and I challenged myself to create an entire game for my very first time. The working title for this game is Resident Robot. My game is all about the misfortunes of a small sweeping robot, and I've been developing the entire game in the Unity game engine. Previously, we kicked off the project by making the movement code, the vacuuming mechanics, and basic level progression. This video is the second installment of the Devlog series. Today's video is 100 times more packed with entertainment, in which I upgrade some of the parts that are already in the game and I added some crazy new stuff. Even the greatest addition to the game thus far. So you're going to want to stick around to the end to see it. But before we get started, allow me to perform some contractual sorcery. Look at the subscribe button below to see if it works, because when I say the word subscribe, it should sparkle. Anyways, now to begin, you can tell the game is in dire need of some TLC on the obstacles, the collectibles, and a bunch of other gobbledygook. So I will be polishing up some of these things that are already in the game. Firstly, there's these big boxes that are supposed to get in your way, and I changed its color to differentiate it from the smaller boxes, which look similar but are just for hiding stains and messing around with. And with the same thing of new looks, there's the stuff you have to collect to progress the levels, the stains. To give it a better look, I gave it its own textures so it's not just a square. After that, I added a skid mark version to demonstrate to the players that they might have to clean underneath the boxes. In the second level, which is full of anomalous liquid, there are some of your Roomba brothers getting absorbed, which should serve as a warning not to touch it too. So I stopped the spinners on them to add to the whole being dead effect. Also, you guys should come up with a name for the main character in the comments. In the game, you have to touch the red squares to recharge your battery. To make them look like Roomba charges, I quickly modeled a new and improved design that uses the simplistic style and colors of the robot itself. And again, with the theme of refurbishing, I designed an elevator that rises out of the ground when the cleaning quota is met. And I added an exit chute for it at the start of each level to show how the player gets from level to level. But I forgot to add an indication that the elevator is the exit, so I just made the words exit with little cubes. Next, I made a door, because to make it a room, you need walls, ceilings, and a floor. And a door, maybe. After that, to fix the boring walls, I strung up some hanging wires to add some more detail. And after that, I finally set up all the new polished features in the third level. And in that same level, sometimes it's hard to see a hazard before you get sliced in half by it. So I changed it by making a little warning strip to draw attention to places of importance. And to finish off, I added a new post-processing to the game to add that spice. I think the game now looks way better than it did before. Now, without any further ado, let's get into the commented suggestions from the last video. And speaking of which, it would be a great time to comment any ideas you have in the comment section below. Alright, our first response is add movement abilities. For example, lube, quickly glide a small distance. This comment gave me the idea to make less of a new ability, but more of a new environmental feature. To implement this feature, I added a designated area in which if the player enters, they're set into a sliding state with a bit of a speed boost. But they cannot change course until they slide off of this slippery substance. So it's kind of a neutral mechanic for the game. Anyway, thank you for the comment, and shout out to Ma7294. The next comment says, the best thing I thought of is the obvious answer. Obstacles that require a higher degree of thinking to get past. For example, an enemy that chases the player, blah, 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 blah. Alright, it's time to turn our little Roomba game into a survival horror game experience by adding our first enemy, a monster. Let's call it Wendy. The enemy will be a mix visually and mechanically of the Bracken and Coilhead from Lethal Company. I chose to go with this design because it's jarring, but it creepily fits in with the whole rest of the game. I want it to tower over the player and move only if the player is moving. It can kill the player with one touch, and it moves insanely fast. But don't fret, because if you watch to the end, I'll show you how you can defeat it. To start, I added a beam for the body, and then I set up a nav mesh using the Unity nav system, which helps the thing move and find its way to the target locations. Next, I started the enemy code, which is only really consisted of two things. Move towards the player. If the player is hit, reload the scene, which just restarts the level. And it can only move when the player is moving, because Wendy has no depth of field like a little baby boy. This forces the player to be strategic with this in mind, striking a balance of not moving too fast, which would attract its attention, and not running out of battery. In the next video, I'll give the beast a model with its own animations because I won't be able to fit it into this video. And now, again, thank you for your comment and shout out to the random mime 7210. What's with all the 7-2s? Alrighty, for our next comment, thank you Drowsy Druid, make a lawnmower skin. Alrighty, I like the idea of just taking something that's supposed to delicately vacuum around your house and just replace it with a lawnmower that would chop everything to pieces. So I began by modeling the lawnmower in Blender and parenting it just onto our player object that we already have. And as you can see, it works as intended. Now equipping the lawnmower skin, that's a different story. To change the player model, I wanted to add a customization screen to the game, which means I would also need a main menu. So I set up one really quick, but I'd never really done menus before, so it kind of looks like crud. So to fix that, I added an army of Roombas to the main title screen. Sadly, it kind of glitched the game out too much, so I deleted them all. I set up the customization menu and the game manager, but in the end, they never ended up working. So I decided to shelf that for now after 4-ish hours had gone down the drain. I promise I will come back to implement this in the future, but with that behind us, it's time for our final suggestion by Comrade. Shout out to Comrade. Hey look buddy, I'm an engineer. That means I solve problems, not problems like...
Not problems like what is beauty, because that would fall within the purview of your conundrum.
I added the TF2 sentry gun. If there's anything that could protect our robot friend, it's gonna be a machine gun. To get started, I added a placeholder for the gun, then I added code to implement the damage done to any unlucky foes staring down the barrel of this here sentry. It's all tunable, so the gun can shoot really slow or really fast if you want. After that, I went into Blender and I modeled the sentry gun itself, and again used the same color palette as the robot. I set it on top, and now it's all good to go. And finally, we can witness the fruits of our labors. Now just for the end, here's some footage of me completing all 3 of the completed levels.